Before we descend into the shadows of this operation, a critical step. Ensure you are subscribed and your notifications are active. And in the comments below, let us know what part of the world you are watching from. The hidden geography we are about to explore is more global than you think. The room, deep in the windowless core of Mossad's headquarters at Glilo Junction, was known as the Aquarium. It wasn't, however, designed to look out. It was designed to be looked in on. Behind a one-way mirrored wall, analysts, mostly young men and women in their early 20s, conscripts from the IDF's elite unit 8200, monitored the digital pulse of the Middle East. They were hunters of whispers, digital archaeologists. His name was Gideon. He wasn't a Katza, a field officer. He was pale, perpetually sleep-deprived, and fueled by bitter coffee and a pathological obsession with patterns. For 3 weeks, he had been staring at a single city block in Khan Yunis, designated Sector 7. It wasn't what he was hearing that bothered him. It was what he wasn't. In the dense, chaotic soup of signals that was the Gaza Strip, Sector 7 was a statistical void, a digital cold spot. No cellular chatter, no unsecured Wi-Fi, no intermittent signals from portable radios. The power consumption for the block, cross-referenced from utility grids, was stable and unremarkable. The thermal imaging from their aerial platforms showed families living, cooking, and sleeping. It was perfectly, aggressively normal. And that, Gideon knew, was impossible. He brought his anomaly to Aitan, a senior case officer in the Somet Junction Division, the branch responsible for recruiting and handling assets. Aitan was built of different material than Gideon. He was analog. He understood human weakness, coercion, and loyalty. He saw the world in shades of betrayal. "A quiet block, Gideon? That's your crisis?" Aitan's voice was dry, skeptical. He leaned over the console, his eyes scanning the data plots. "It's not quiet, Aitan. It's silent," Gideon insisted, pulling up a topographical map of radio frequency interference. "Every other block looks like a Christmas tree. This one," he pointed to a black hole in the data, "is a vacuum. Someone is spending serious resources to sound like nothing. They are spoofing normal life. The thermal is faked. It's too consistent. The power is being routed through scrubbers to flatten the signature. This is professional-grade signal discipline." Aitan was still. The skepticism faded, replaced by the cold, calculating focus of a predator. He recognized the tradecraft. This wasn't the signature of a low-level militant cell. This was the signature of a state, or an organization behaving like one. "You're telling me there's a black hole in Khan Yunis," Aitan said, more a statement than a question. "I'm telling you there's a fortress," Gideon replied, "and we have no idea what it's guarding." Aitan looked at the map, at the unremarkable residential building at the center of the void. "Get me internal seismic," he ordered, "and get me every asset we have with eyes on that street. I don't care if it's a grocer, a utility worker, or a lost child. I want to know who breathes on that block." The order went out, filtered through the layers of security that separated Mossad's external mission from the internal jurisdiction of the Shin Bet, Shabak. The ears were deployed, not just aerial, but terrestrial. Along the fortified border, a series of deeply buried fiber optic cables and geophones, remnants of the multi-billion-dollar subterranean obstacle, were retasked. They weren't listening for the thump, thump, thump of digging anymore. They were listening for something far more subtle. Gideon's team, now working with IDF sensor specialists, began a 24/7 analysis of the seismic data from Sector 7. For 2 weeks, they found nothing but the ambient noise of a living city, the rumble of trucks, the clatter of construction, the deep thrum of generators. Then, at 02:17 a.m. on a Tuesday, they caught it. It wasn't a sound, it was a vibration, a low-frequency, perfectly rhythmic hum. It lasted for exactly 90 seconds. Then it vanished. Gideon cross-referenced the time. 02:17 a.m. No construction, no heavy vehicles logged by aerial surveillance. Nothing. He ran the signature through a dozen analysis filters. It wasn't mechanical, like a generator. It wasn't percussive, like digging. "It's harmonic," he told Aitan in a hurried meeting. "It's the resonance of a massive electrical current passing through a shielded conduit, or something else." Like what? Like a high-capacity ventilation system. Or an elevator, a deep one. The kind of acoustic dampening we're seeing, the shielding, it's not designed to hide from human ears. It's designed to hide from us. From these sensors. The focus of the operation sharpened. This wasn't just a signals-dead safe house. This was a portal, an entrance. Eitan activated his primary logical target, a mid-level Hamas quartermaster he had been developing for months. The man wasn't a true asset. Not yet. He was just a line of inquiry, a man with access to procurement lists and logistical schedules. The query was simple, sent via a compartmentalized handler. We have interest in large-scale air filtration systems. Anything moving? The reply came back 48 hours later, buried in a seemingly innocent shipping manifest. Negative on large systems. But 6 months ago, a humanitarian order, hospital-grade CO2 scrubbers, 3 of them, marked for a clinic in Jabalia. Gideon checked the data. The clinic in Jabalia received 1, Eitan. The other 2, they vanished from the manifest 2 kilometers from Sector 7. The pieces were slotting into place, a silent block, a deep mechanical hum, 2 missing CO2 scrubbers. This is a command node, Eitan said, the words hanging heavy in the sterile air. They've built a bunker deep enough to defeat our GPR, a place for leadership to operate. I think it's more than that, Gideon said, pointing to the seismic map. He isolated the hum. The resonance isn't static. I ran a Doppler analysis. It's moving. It's very, very slow, but it's moving south. A chilling silence fell over the room. It's not a bunker, Eitan whispered, the realization dawning. It's a terminus. It's a station. They needed human intelligence, humaned. Technology could only map the shadow. It couldn't see the object casting it. Eitan reviewed the active asset list for Gaza. It was a thin file, dangerous and volatile. Most assets were low-level, used for tracking rocket crews or reporting on public sentiment. Then, he saw her file. Codename: Dandelion. She was not a willing spy. She was a compromised one, which, in Eitan's experience, often made her more reliable. Nadia was a senior administrator at a large Gaza hospital, a woman whose child was receiving life-saving, experimental cancer treatment in a Tel Aviv hospital, all quietly facilitated and paid for by a European humanitarian NGO that was, in fact, a Mossad front. Nadia hated her handlers. She hated the deception, the constant gnawing fear. But she loved her daughter. Eitan knew she would do what was asked. Her importance was twofold. First, she was high-level enough to interact with Hamas officials who came to the hospital for priority treatment. Second, her hospital's primary logistics supplier was a company also responsible for public works in Khan Yunis. Eitan didn't contact her directly. He activated her handler, a woman based in Cyprus, who flew to Tel Aviv to meet Nadia during one of her daughter's appointments. The meeting took place in the bright, sterile cafeteria of the Children's Oncology Ward. They just want to know about a man, the handler, Sarah said, stirring her coffee. She never looked directly at Nadia. A civil engineer. He visits your hospital, but not as a patient. His name is Ibrahim. He oversees urban renewal. Nadia felt the familiar cold dread. I've seen him. He meets with the hospital director about the new wing. We need to know when he meets, Sarah said. We need his routine. We need to know who he talks to, who his driver is, what he carries. We are interested in his briefcase. What? Why? Nadia's hands were shaking. Don't ask, Nadia. Just observe, Sarah said, her voice soft but absolute. You are an administrator. You see schedules. You see visitor logs. You are invisible. Be invisible. For 3 weeks, Nadia lived on a razor's edge. She did her job, a mask of bored competence fixed to her face. She tracked Ibrahim. She noted his visits. Twice a week. Always on a Tuesday and a Thursday. Always at 10 a.m. He met with the director, but also, she noted, he always had a private consultation with a specific IT technician in the hospital's server room. She reported this. The information was filtered back to Gideon and Eitan. An IT tech? Gideon pulled the tech's file. He's clean, no known affiliations. He doesn't have to be affiliated, Eitan countered. He just has to be the conduit, The engineer, Ibrahim. The architect we've been looking for. He's not just checking on concrete, he's managing a network. They dug into the IT tech. His brother-in-law was a known Hamas quartermaster. That's the link, Eitan said. The hospital is a clean node for passing data. Ibrahim brings a drive or a device and gives it to the tech. The tech uploads it to a secure server which then broadcasts it. But to where? To the cold spot in Sector 7. Gideon finished. He's bringing his plans to the hospital, and the IT tech is pushing them to the command node. He's reporting his progress. Now we have the who, Eitan said. Ibrahim is our man. But we still don't know the what. We have a station, but where does the train go? The operation shifted from passive listening to active pursuit. The target was no longer a building. It was Ibrahim, the architect. Mossad's Neviot division, responsible for planting listening devices and optical surveillance, began planning a black bag operation. But it was too risky. Ibrahim's home and office were likely guarded, or, at the very least, watched by Hamas internal security. Getting close enough to plant a GPS tracker on his car or person was a high-risk gamble. We can't, Eitan argued with his superiors. If we're caught, the entire network is burned. Dandelion is executed. The architect goes to ground. The tunnel, if it is a tunnel, goes dark. We have to do this clean. Clean, Gideon repeated, an idea forming. What if we don't plant a device? What if we plant data? The plan was audacious. It was a classic false flag intelligence op. They would use Dandelion one more time, but not to observe, to plant. The package was a small, innocuous USB drive. On it was a single file, a corrupted piece of malware, harmless in itself, but containing a sophisticated multispectrum beacon. The moment that drive was plugged into a computer, it would ping, not over the internet, but sending a tightly focused burst transmission to a listening post, and simultaneously emitting a unique, subaudible acoustic signature designed to be picked up by the seismic sensors. This was the Judas technique. Tag the asset and let him betray the network without ever knowing it. The handoff was agonizing. Sarah met Nadia again. This time there was no pretext of a hospital visit. It was a dead drop in a crowded market. The USB drive was hidden inside a box of children's vitamins. You know what to do, the instructions read, in invisible ink legible only under a specific light. The hospital server room. You have access. When the IT tech is at prayer, you will find his personal laptop. Plug it in, count to 5, remove it, walk away. The file will transfer in seconds. He will think it was a corrupted drive and discard it. He will not report it. Nadia felt her world collapsing. This was not observation. This was infiltration. This was an act she could not walk back from. She waited 2 days, her nerves shredded. The IT tech left for afternoon prayers. The server room was cold, the hum of the racks a dull roar. She found his laptop. Her hand, slick with sweat, fumbled with the USB. She inserted it. The small light on the drive flashed. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. She pulled it out, pocketed it, and walked out of the room. She was shaking so violently she had to brace herself against the corridor wall. Back in the aquarium, Gideon's screen lit up. We have it, he breathed. Ping received. The malware is on the laptop. It's dormant, waiting. The bait was set. Now, they waited for the fish. They watched Ibrahim. They watched the IT tech. They watched Sector 7. 4 days later, on his regular Tuesday visit, Ibrahim entered the hospital. He met with the director, then proceeded as scheduled to the server room. Surveillance footage, fed from a compromised security camera Dandelion's handler had previously glitched, showed him handing the IT tech his own military-grade laptop. The tech plugged in a cable, presumably transferring his report from the hospital's clean network. What Ibrahim didn't know was that the IT tech's personal laptop was on the same small local network. The moment Ibrahim's computer connected, Nadia's Judas malware detected the new, high-privilege device. It unspooled, migrated across the local connection, and embedded itself deep in the core operating system of Ibrahim's machine. It was a digital ghost, invisible, silent, and now deeply embedded with the architect. Gideon's hands flew across his keyboard. It's in. The beacon is active. My God, it's talking. Ibrahim's laptop was a fortress, encrypted, air-gapped most of the time. But the malware wasn't trying to steal data. It was designed to map its environment. It was listening to the machine's own internal hardware. He's got a custom RF transmitter built into the chassis, Gideon said, decoding the metadata. It's transmitting low-frequency bursts, point to point. No satellites, no cell towers. It's communicating directly with something. With Sector 7, Aitan said. Exactly. It's performing a digital handshake, authenticating the device before it can connect to their internal network. At 14 odd hours, Ibrahim left the hospital. The Mossad team tracked his car, but they were tracking something far more important, the ping from his laptop. He drove to Sector 7. He entered the Cold Spot building. His car's GPS signal vanished, as expected. His cellular signal vanished. But the new beacon, the one planted by Nadia, did not. It was designed for this. He's in the building, the surveillance team reported. Beacon is static, Gideon confirmed. Then his eyes widened. Wait, it's descending, fast. He's in an elevator. Signal is stable. 10 meters down, 20 meters, 30. It's leveling off. 32 meters below ground. A collective breath was held in the aquarium. He's moving, Gideon said, his voice hushed. The beacon is moving south, fast. He's not walking. Gideon's screen was now the center of the operation. The dot representing Ibrahim's laptop was tracing a path, a perfect, unwavering line, moving at a steady 15 kilometers per hour. It's a tunnel, Eaton stated. It was the first time the word had been spoken with certainty. A protected, reinforced, subterranean highway. The dot moved, tracing a line under the most densely populated areas of Khan Yunis. It passed under a UN school. It passed under a mosque. It passed under a busy market. It was an engineering marvel, a strategic artery completely invisible to the world above. The signal was strong, which told them something terrifying. The tunnel was shielded above from aerial surveillance, but it was also designed to facilitate communication within it. It was wired. He's mapping it for us, Gideon said, a grim smile on his face. Every turn, every junction. For 20 minutes, they watched the dot move. It traveled south, then veered sharply southeast, heading directly toward the heavily fortified border area near Rafah. Where is he going? A military liaison officer asked, his face pale. Is he coming here? No, Aitan said, his eyes fixed on the map. He's going to the command, the other command. This isn't just about moving people. This is about connecting nodes. Look, the dot was approaching another known Hamas command and control bunker, a site that had been hit in previous conflicts and rebuilt, deeper and stronger. It was considered a primary leadership hideout. The dot stopped, 30 meters beneath the exact coordinates of the bunker. He's arrived, Gideon said. He just connected Sector 7 to the Rafah C2 node, a distance of 7 kilometers. The implications were staggering. This wasn't a tunnel. It was an underground railroad. It was a hardened, secure, high-speed artery connecting a civilian shielded station in Khan Yunis to a fortified military bunker. It was the central nervous system of Hamas's command structure. They could move high-value individuals, weapons, documents, and hostages from the center of Gaza to the border, or vice versa, in minutes, with zero risk of interception. It rendered billions of dollars of aerial surveillance and border security almost obsolete. This is it, Aitan said, running a hand through his graying hair. This is what they've been building for 5 years. This is their strategic reserve, their ace. Now, the military liaison said, his voice hard, we know where it is. The order will be to destroy it. We call in the Air Force, GBU-28s, deep penetration. Aitan shook his head. No, you can't. You'll never get it. It's 30 meters down, reinforced, and running under a city. You'd level half of Khan Yunis just to maybe crack it. You'd create 1,000 martyrs and a political catastrophe, and you'd still miss the target. So what do you suggest, Aitan? Aitan looked at the glowing line on Gideon's map. A bunker buster is loud. It tells them what we know. We need a different approach. We can't just destroy it. We have to expose it. We have to turn their greatest strength into their greatest vulnerability. The operation now had a name: Metro Prime. The debate in Tel Aviv between Mossad, Shin Bet, and the IDF General Staff was intense. The IDF, predictably, wanted a kinetic solution. They proposed a complex keyhole strike. Use the smallest diameter, deepest penetrating munitions to target the shafts at both ends. Sever the head and the tail. Shin Bet argued against it. It's an intelligence goldmine. Now that we have the Judas beacon, we can tap it. We can feed our own data into their network. We can own their C2 structure from the inside. We can listen to every word, every plan. Eitan, representing Mossad, offered the third and most unsettling option. Both of you are wrong, he told the assembled generals and intel chiefs. A kinetic strike is too messy and too uncertain. It fails, and we've revealed our hand. Tapping it, he looked at the Shin Bet chief, is too delicate. The Judas malware is a temporary ghost. They'll find it. Their network security is too sophisticated. The moment they sweep their systems, the beacon is gone, and so is our access, and Dandelion is compromised. What's your solution, Eitan? The Prime Minister asked, patched in via secure video. We don't bomb it. We don't tap it. We disable it. We turn their billion-dollar highway into a tomb. But we do it in a way that leaves them uncertain of how we did it. We create a mystery failure. We make them tear their own security structure apart, looking for a traitor who doesn't exist. We make them afraid of their own shadow. The plan was elegant, terrifying, and relied on a second ghost. Gideon's team had been analyzing the data from Ibrahim's laptop. The malware wasn't just a beacon, it was a keylogger. It had captured the authentication protocol, the digital handshake, that Ibrahim used to connect to the tunnel's internal network. We can't get in, Gideon explained, but we can impersonate him. We can broadcast a signal that looks like Ibrahim's laptop, authenticating from a known clean location, like the hospital server room. What good does that do? The IDF general grumbled. We can't send a command, Eitan said, but we can send a packet, a corrupted one. A piece of data so malformed, so toxic it will crash the receiver. We can't blow up the tunnel, but we can blow up their control system. The target was the ventilation and power system, the two missing CO2 scrubbers, the massive electrical hum. The tunnel was deep, but it was not self-sufficient. It required a constant, massive supply of fresh air and power, all managed by a sensitive industrial control system, ICS. If we can't blow up the concrete, Gideon explained, we make it uninhabitable. We send a logic bomb, a targeted attack, disguised as Ibrahim's weekly report. The packet will clear authentication. It will be accepted by the master server in Sector 7. And then it will execute. It won't wipe data. It will issue a single command. Emergency, shutdown, 000. Then it will erase itself. It will turn off the lights and the air, the Prime Minister clarified. Permanently, Gideon confirmed. It will simultaneously instruct the ICS to ignore all on commands. It will brick the system. They'll be 30 meters underground in a 7-kilometer tube, and the lights will go out. The air will stop moving. They will have to evacuate. They'll be forced to the surface. And when they surface, the IDF general asked, a predatory gleam in his eye. They surface into our nests, Eitan said. Shin Bet and Sayeret Matkal units will be waiting, in disguise, at both ends. Not to engage, to watch. To document, we get positive ID on every single operative and leader that climbs out of that hole. We map their entire command structure in one night. The plan was approved. It was codenamed Nightfall. The first priority was exfiltration. Nadia, Dandelion. She had served her purpose, and she was now the single greatest liability to the operation. Eitan's team executed a flawless, if brutal, extraction. During her next trip to Tel Aviv, her daughter was declared to be in remission, but in need of specialized follow-up care only available in Germany. The humanitarian NGO arranged the flight. Nadia and her daughter landed in Berlin and were met by Mossad agents. They were taken to a safe house. Her old life, her home, her family, everything she knew was gone. She was safe. She was a ghost. She had saved her child, but lost her world. Char hour was set for Zortu Dras, aligning with the seismic hum Gideon had first detected. This was when the system ran its main diagnostics and was most vulnerable. In the aquarium, the atmosphere was electric. Gideon sat at his console, the poison packet queued and ready. It was nested inside a perfect replica of Ibrahim's data files, seismic readings, concrete density charts, ventilation metrics. Surveillance on Sector 7 is go. A voice crackled over the comms. We have eyes. Surveillance on Rafah node is go, another voice confirmed. Sayeret Matkal is in position. Eitan, Gideon said, his fingers hovering over the keyboard. We are greenlit. We are impersonating the hospital server. We have a clean window. Send it, Eitan ordered. Gideon hit the key. The packet, less than a single kilobyte of data, left the Mossad server, bounced through a series of proxy servers in 3 different continents, and presented itself at the digital door of the Sector 7 command node. For a full 30 seconds, there was nothing. Just the ambient hum of the aquarium's own servers. Handshake accepted, Gideon said, his voice flat, trying to control his breathing. They took it. The server in Sector 7 is authenticating the packet. It's in. The payload is active. He switched to the seismic sensor feed. The rhythmic 90-second hum of the ventilation system, the very first clue to the tunnel's existence, faltered. It sputtered. It stopped. Seismic signature is flat, Gideon reported. I've lost the hum. Nightfall is active. The system is dark. Eitan grabbed a microphone. All call signs. Nightfall is active. I repeat, the system is dark. Stand by for targets. Eyes up. 32 meters beneath Khan Yunis, the world ended. The bright industrial fluorescent lights in the tunnel, a concrete tube wide enough for 2 men to walk abreast, snapped off, plunging the passage into absolute primordial darkness. Then, the immense roar of the ventilation system died, replaced by a suffocating, pressurized silence. In the Sector 7 station, a concrete bunker containing the elevator, a small barracks, and the C2 server room, Hamas operatives shouted in confusion. The emergency backup lights, simple battery-powered LEDs, flickered on, casting long, grotesque shadows. What happened? A commander yelled at his technicians. The system is dead, sir, one replied, his voice pitching high with panic. The main breaker, it won't reset. The command system is unresponsive. It's not a power failure, it's a system failure. The commander understood immediately. The tunnel had 90 minutes of breathable air, perhaps 2 hours, before the CO2 levels became toxic. It was a 7-kilometer trap. Evacuate, he screamed. Evacuate, all personnel, surface now. The same scene was playing out at the Rafah node. A scramble in the dark. Men trained for combat were now just desperate for air. On the surface, the Matkal team leader, hidden in a derelict apartment overlooking the Rafah bunker's hidden exit, whispered into his comms. We have movement. A steel door, 50 meters north of the target. It's opening. Men coming out. 1, 2, 5, 10. They are in civilian clothes. They are scattering. We are recording. At Sector 7, the scene was more frantic. The Cold Spot building, the one with the faked thermal signature, burst open. The front door was thrown aside, and men, gasping, panicked, poured onto the street. They weren't low-level fighters. The high-definition, long-range cameras were capturing every face. Get me facial recognition now, Eitan snapped at Gideon. One by one, the dots lit up on Gideon's screen. That's the chemist, Gideon said, his voice awed. Hamas's chief of special munitions. We thought he was in Lebanon. And him, that's the paymaster. He controls the finances. Then a man stumbled out, supported by 2 others. He was older, with a white beard. He was known only as the Shadow, the head of Hamas's internal security and a member of the organization's highest council. He had not been seen in public for 3 years. We have him. Eitan breathed. We have them all. They just gave us their entire leadership structure. The men scattered into the night, disappearing into the civilian population, unaware that every face, every name, was now in a Mossad file, marked, confirmed. The aftermath was more successful than any bomb could have been. Hamas's internal security was in chaos. They tore Sector 7 apart, searching for a bug, a transmitter, a physical breach. They found nothing. The building was clean. The servers, when they were finally rebooted using external power, showed no signs of intrusion. The poison packet had erased itself completely. Their most secure, most expensive strategic asset was now a 7-kilometer concrete coffin. They couldn't trust it. They didn't know how it had been compromised. Suspicion fell, as Eitan had predicted, inward. Ibrahim, the architect, was taken for questioning. His encrypted laptop was seized. Hamas technicians scanned it for weeks. They found the Judas malware, or rather the remnants of it. But they couldn't trace its origin. To them, it looked like a state-level virus. But where did it come from? Ibrahim, under duress, insisted he had followed protocol. His story was flawless. He had no idea how his machine was compromised. He, in turn, blamed the IT technician at the hospital. The IT technician was taken. He, in turn, blamed the hospital administration for lax security. The mystery failure had sown a virus of paranoia that no malware could match. Hamas's internal security began eating itself, hunting for a ghost, a traitor who was already safe in Berlin, watching her daughter play in a park. Eitan stood in the aquarium, looking at the org chart on the main screen. It was no longer a list of shadowed names and question marks. It was a full board, populated with high-definition photos, confirmed locations, and known associates. "They did it," Gideon said, standing beside him. "They're flooding the tunnel. Our sensors just picked up the pumps. They're filling it with concrete from both ends. They're destroying their own creation." "They had no choice," Eitan said. "We didn't just break their tunnel. We broke their trust in it. We exposed it to them." The intelligence victory was absolute. Metro Prime was sealed, not by an Israeli bomb, but by its own creators. The entire senior leadership of Hamas, unmasked and identified, was now on the run, their command structure shattered, their communications compromised by mutual suspicion. The cost, as always, was buried in the ledgers. In Berlin, Nadia, now Helen, received a new passport. She would never see her home again. She was the perfect asset, effective, successful, and entirely disposable. She had committed the ultimate betrayal, not for ideology or for money, but for the life of her child. She was a hero to one nation, a traitor to another, and a ghost to herself. In Tel Aviv, Gideon, the analyst, was given a commendation. He went back to his screens, hunting for the next anomaly, the next patch of unnatural silence. And Eitan, the Katsa, closed the file. He knew that the war in the shadows was not about single victories. It was a perpetual, grinding process. He knew that even as they celebrated, somewhere else in the sand and concrete of Gaza, another architect was drawing a new line on a new map. The ground-penetrating radar was already listening. The hunt for the next ghost, the next echo, had already begun. The tunnel was exposed, but the darkness, the true, deep operational darkness from which it came, remained impenetrable. Voz de narrador en inglés. The file on Metro Prime is closed, but the subterranean war is far from over. If you value these declassified investigations and want to see what we uncover next, ensure you are subscribed. Every subscription helps us dig deeper. This is Cinematic Intel, signing off.